I'm just doing a quick introduction of Dr. Pinar Balci. She is the Assistant Commissioner of the Environmental Planning and Analysis at our New York City DEP, Department of Environmental Protection. So we're excited to have her here starting us off today.
Thank you, Holly. And before I kick it off, I really would like to thank the organizing committee to give us the opportunity to present today. And although I am, working for the New York City DEP, I am indeed representing of multitude of agencies today, which some of them are have the opportunity to join. I just want to give them a shout out to our sister agencies, DOT, DDC, Parks, NYCHA, schools, so on and so forth, helping us really to overcome this very much challenging, how can we do climate resilient stormwater planning in the New York City. So this is a collective effort. We partner with a lot of city agencies, as well as you all, the stakeholders, play a large role in our planning efforts. So I want to thank you all again for giving us the opportunity, which I'm going to set the stage, but we have other staff joining, and I'm going to hand it over them because there is not going to be enough time to be able to really give a brief overview what we are indeed doing in New York City. So I'm excited to be here. And first, I would like to kick it off for those. I'm seeing some students are also joining, and they may or may not know who we are, but we are the wastewater utility in the city, New York City DEP. The large portfolio of our infrastructure projects are indeed on the water supply. We provide the 1 billion gallon that all the New Yorkers are really enjoying day to day. And it became so important during the pandemic, as we discussed with this group in the past. But we are in charge of supplying that clean water to our ratepayers. On the treatment side, we have to treat that water. So that goes through our 14 treatment plants, and we have a tremendous sewer and sanitary and storm sewer infrastructure that encompasses 96 pump stations and more than 7,000 miles of sewers. Some people may not know, but we also are in charge of air, noise, and hazardous waste regulations and enforcement in the city as well. So just a brief overview. Now I want to get into, I'm hearing, and we are all hearing, what the city is really gonna do in light of climate change. So we are very much aware of this fact. It's not a hoax. And we've been very closely working New York City panel on climate. And we are fortunate enough to have these very well done local projections. And you can see here the summary. Everything is, expected or projected to increase, ranging from the heat, precipitation, sea level rise by 2050. And most recently, unfortunately, we all experienced last year the storm Ida. It was, we know those kind of cloudburst events, the high intensity, short duration events are detrimental for the city because we, as you all know, 72% of the city are still impervious. So when the rain drops on that impervious surfaces, it creates these kind of conditions and results in tremendous flooding in some neighborhoods. The picture on the left is indeed where we work in Left Rock in Queens. And this is the day that right after Ida, I had the opportunity to take it from one of the buildings surrounding the Left Rock. So, what I'm going to be talking about today, yes, these events are going to become more and more common, and the city is aware of that. And what we are doing is really putting our forces, unified forces together with all the city agencies, ranging from operations to infrastructure build out, and how we can make the city more green and more stormwater management friendly in the upcoming years. So that's kind of what I'm going to be presenting today. And I'm going to kick it off with our famous Green Infrastructure Program that many of you have been walking on this path since 2012, since we have done the Green Infrastructure Plan. And, we, as you all know, the Green Infrastructure Plan, which is really targeting for CSO mitigation, water quality, purpose formulated, distributed assets, are indeed helping in some neighborhoods where we do not have available drainage to mitigate some of the local flooding conditions. So we are happy that, green infrastructure is indeed started in our toolbox with 4 combined sewer overflow reduction, but there are so many co-benefits that you all know, ranging from the heat island impact reduction to now some localized flood risk mitigation benefits. So where we are with the Green Infrastructure Program since 2012, we started, we said, city has an ownership 50% when it comes to the land use distribution. This chart really represents what is in private versus what is in public. And as you can see, when it comes to the public 50%, majority of that, around 30% of that is in the right of way. So we said, if you are going to start the stormwater management program, let's start with the hardest to build. And that is indeed our right of way infrastructure program. That's where we started to building, that you are seeing those rain gardens, infiltration basins, type D type of assets. We have a great many of stormwater management practices now targeting and taking into consideration the neighborhood characteristics, and we are attacking and just, creating that distributed stormwater management network in all the boroughs, and particularly concentrating in Bronx, Queens, and Brooklyn. So, those asset types that I mentioned, and as the year passed, in the beginning of the program, that you are all familiar with our standard rain garden design, which we had a curb inlet and an outlet with a tree guard, vegetated infrastructure in the middle, and trees. Over the years, we realized that this one asset type is not necessarily applicable to each neighborhood characteristics. So we had lessons learned from the field. In the past, we were rejecting some of these rain gardens because the neighborhood characteristics really didn't, was the siting constraints didn't enable us to build them. So with that lessons learned, we start, our designers start taking those neighborhood characteristics into the design consideration. And we, now we moved from the rain garden and we added this new type D asset. It's still on the surface, looks and feels like a rain garden, but as you can see, there is no inlet and an outlet. And this helps the trash not getting into these assets and enables us with the maintenance aspects of it, especially in those neighborhoods where trash has been a problem. And then we said, what about the commercial neighborhoods? What about those industrial neighborhoods that, putting a rain garden is really going to be not very well maintained because it constantly gets the truck trafficking. It constantly has those outside pollutants. So can we still manage stormwater, even though we have site and neighborhood concerns, but do it differently? So we came up with this new infrastructure design, which we are mostly utilizing in those very site constraints neighborhoods, where we can indeed still provide the stormwater management underneath, that you don't see it, but there's there are different layers of stone and sand underneath it. So it does provide similar stormwater management to our rain gardens underneath it. And this way we are not really rejecting this particular site, but we are still building stormwater management in those neighborhoods. The sister version of this is our grass top infiltration basin. So if the neighborhood has this grass patches, we want to, we call it in-kind replacement. And it helped us with some neighborhoods in the city. Sheena knows this very well, that, we got some community pushback and we were able to keep building our green infrastructure because we said, your neighborhood is not going to change. It's an in-kind replacement. So we do not have to reject those sites, but keep building the stormwater infrastructure. And then the most recent addition that I am glad to announce today is our porous panels. You may know that we've been piloting this technology for some time in Rigo Park, which is very close to where we work in Left Rock. And they've been there and they've been functioning pretty well. So there are those neighborhoods, as you can see, the site walk doesn't provide the necessary space to build green infrastructure, or we have these tree issues or tree concerns that we in the past, we were rejecting these kind of neighborhoods, but now we are going back to those neighborhoods and indeed applying a porous panel version of green infrastructure, which is still, making the area from impervious to pervious. And we do provide that stormwater management given the neighborhood concerns or constraints. So sorry, I'm gonna, also would like to announce that we certified our first milestone, which indeed now we have built 11,050 assets in the city. I mean, that is a major accomplishment, and I want to applaud and give a lot of credit to our sister agencies as well as our staff who are joining us today. But we couldn't have done it without that significant support from you all and from our sister agencies. So we recently certified end of last year. We sent a certification letter to our regulator, DEC, and the program goal with this certification is indeed achieving 1/3 of the goal that the Green Infrastructure Program set. 507 million gallon CSO is going to be reduced with this implementation. And over the years, as you can imagine, we started the program with 1.5 billion in 2012. But as you know, over the years, the cost kept increasing. So now the program budget is around $1.8 billion to be able to, carry us to the finish line, meeting this 1.67 billion. So I talked about our interagency success. As you know, that 30% of the city is now heavily saturated with the green infrastructure, with our right-of-way assets. We said, we have to really take this program to the next level and start building these relationships with our three key partners, the Parks Department, Public Schools, and NYCHA. And those are the largest city agencies who own the land that we can indeed retrofit. So that's why we started these partnerships. And this is a current recap of where we are. We are looking around more than 400 sites encompassing parks, public schools, NYCHA housing, and constantly retrofitting those impervious land in those. And also, we are providing that infrastructure lift, like the NYCHA housing. We have done many parking lots, which the NYCHA residents are very thankful for. And while we are doing that infrastructure, we are also helping with the drainage of the site. So that really helped some of these NYCHA blocks where they used to have the flooding. And after we finished our job, we received some thank you letters from the NYCHA leadership team telling us that those the NYCHA housing during IDA didn't get flooded because of our green infrastructure. The public school is another one that we love doing. We have a great partnership with Trust for Public Lands. And what I like about this program, it's really, we are providing stormwater management, but more than that, we are giving the students a leg up in terms of, while they are still young, they know what stormwater management means. So it is that educational component, which is really priceless. We cannot put a tag on that. And that's why we love doing more and more these TPL type projects. And we have a separate portfolio than the Trust for Public Land we keep pursuing in providing more stormwater management and aiding the stormwater management into the science curriculum of the school community. So, I added this one slide here, but, I don't know if Karen is joining us, but, we've been working very, very closely with CB8 and the Bronx River Environmental Council, which really started, they shepherded this wonderful opportunity many years ago. And now we are taking it to the next level and actually making the Tibbettsburg daylighting happening, hopefully before I retire. But this is what we have done. We are having a stakeholder kickoff in March, sometime end of March, April, and we make sure that you all are going to get invited. Mikhail is coordinating that effort. And as part of this project, this is going to be our largest green infrastructure project in the city. And the whole idea is really daylight to Brook, which used to go to the Broadway sewer, take that flow out of the sewer system and daylight through the Van Cortlandt Park. I don't know if you can see my arrow, and all the way to the CSX property, which we are currently negotiating to purchase the easement rights of that property and then connect back to the river where our current CSO outfall is. So this one project, it's in totality is going to reduce the CSOs more than 220 million gallons, and it's going to be the most cost-effective project that on the current estimates that we are going to be paying less than $1 per gallon. So there are many, many moving components. It's not only a water quality project in terms of CSO mitigation, but we are working and partnering with the Parks Department to create a greenway that's adjacent to our daylighted portion, which is gonna become, I call it the High Line of Bronx. So we are very, very excited. And according to the current schedule, I don't think I added here, we are hoping to kick off the construction in 2024 to 2025. So that's the timeline that we are running, and we hope to keep that timeline, and the project is fully funded. So you may ask, okay, great, you are taking the advantage of the city-owned land, your partnerships, so on and so forth, but what about the rest of the 50%, right? That pie chart that I have shown you, the rest of the 50% of the land in the city is owned by the private sector. So indeed, we thought about that. We worked with you over the last several years to come up with this very creative contracting framework, which is fully, almost fully funded, $53 million. And the idea under this is really, can we provide enough incentives to large property owners, the private property owners, to incentivize them to build green on their property? So that is indeed the whole purpose of this contract, is find those partners in the private sector that owns these large parcels and retrofit their land. And by doing so, they benefit because they get an upgrade, and we benefit because we use that land to be able to store the stormwater management for fighting with the climate change and fighting with providing more imperviousness to the city. So it is the whole contract is a very innovative way how we are doing it. We have currently structured it to pay $250,000 per green acre. But if the contractor does this job before the timelines that we set forth in the contract, then they get the bonus payment. So there's that additional incentive to trigger the contractor to work with the private property owners. And our goal at the end of this 5-year contract is to create 200 green acres. And I think most of you know, but we just registered the contract several months ago. And then, I'm gonna give you a brief, or should I take the questions now, Sheena, or wait until the end? I think there are some people raising hands, but I'm going to keep going on this.
Yes, let's wait till the end.
Okay. All right. So, of course, the infrastructure build out that we are taking or expansion on the private property is not going to be enough, right, for bringing that holistic stormwater management effort. So we looked at our, additional incentives and additional regulatory power that we have, which Melissa is going to be talking about, this unified stormwater rule right after I'm done. But in addition to what we are doing, utilizing the city funds, we also created this very robust incentive program for the private sector. And I listed them all here. You are probably familiar with them. We have a green roof tax abatement, which you helped to pass this tax abatement, and now properties within the priority districts will indeed receiving a tax abatement of $15 per square foot for green roofs. So that is a major change from the earlier version, and we are excited about this program. We have a very robust green infrastructure grant program that we've been doing over the years, and it resulted in some successful projects, not enough, but we have a portfolio of 30 plus projects that is a result of this grant program. We have a reuse program, under this integrated water management umbrella, we are indeed using our grant program for reuse, particularly for stormwater reuse. So this has been established as a pilot program, but now slowly growing in how to really bridge the gap between stormwater management and water reuse. And this has been a very integral part of that integration. And most recently, in the last rate setting, we did accomplish developing this new incentive. It's an on-site distributed system. Any private property owner could utilize, if they do decide putting an on-site treatment system as part of that development, then they are eligible to receive 25% on the water side and 76% on the wastewater side for a discount on their bills. So this has been very well taken. I think you have heard, there's many testimonies went in to support this change in our rate structure. And we are working with a couple developers to indeed have this implemented in the near future, particularly on the Brooklyn waterfront. So I'm going to go to the next one. Now there's a little gap. Okay, I'm going to not really talk about the unified stormwater rule because Melissa is going to be talking about this, but this is a tremendous great news and great effort that we've been working on the last 3 years to change our stormwater regulations and make this integrated stormwater management under our regulations, particularly take the advantage of redevelopment, right? There's around 1%, 1.1% of the city is redeveloped every year. So why not take an advantage of that redevelopment opportunity and make the change in our regulations to make sure that every private property owner, if they trigger our new rule, which is the disturbance of 20,000 square more of soil or adding the 5,000 square more of impervious area, if they trigger that, then they have to comply with our new rule. So, and the new rule is really based on retention first. So that's what we are encouraging the private property owners. They have to see if they can retain first before they can explore other options in our toolbox. So Melissa has a great presentation, so I'm going to let her to speak more on that one. And, I mentioned about the reuse and why it's really cannot be only talked or discussed about water supply, but it is indeed part of our stormwater management. So we formed this integrated water management group here in DEP, and the whole focus is, can we, bridge the gap between our water supply portfolio, which we established under the demand management, and bring that demand management and water reuse to our stormwater management portfolio, and how can we really utilize that tool in the toolbox to incentivize projects. So far, we have done that very diligently. And there is, there are a couple more examples, but I cannot really share them all. So I'm highlighting this for, the Forest House and the local plumbers union are indeed the reuse of the rainwater. And this is used for irrigation purposes. This is the local plumbers union is used for internal flushing purposes. So this is how we are bridging the gap, looking at our reuse portfolio and how we can indeed take credit either for CSO mitigation or stormwater management credits by doing reuse projects in the city. And there's many examples that we can definitely talk about it on another time. So, talking about all this, where are we really going to go next? That's the question, our commissioner asked us. What is one thing that you can tell us to keep you awake at night? And my thing is, if he asks me, is like, how are we going to really take what we have done in the last 10 years to the next level, right? Like, we know climate is changing. We know what we have done is great, but it's not enough. So what is the next portfolio for the city to start contemplating, planning, and putting the wheels in motion? And in order to help us with that planning effort, we said, we need to know which parts of the city is really vulnerable when it comes to flooding. So we have completed this tremendous effort under Melissa and working with our City Hall partners. And we produced these maps of the flood maps for the whole city, for the 50, 100-year flood maps, as well as the 10-year flood maps. And now we are really taking this as a baseline, and it gives us like this indication of which parts of the city is indeed mostly vulnerable. And we are now going to apply our new cloudburst management portfolio, which Ellen is going to be talking about next week, is to, for those flood management efforts, how we can bring green solutions coupled with gray solutions and use this temporary space of traffic and open areas to do so. So it's really taking the green infrastructure to the next level. The cloudburst management approach is going to target more intense rainfalls. We are going to up our design criteria to 2.3 inches versus the 1 inch, how the green infrastructure is designed. And we are going to look at this existing areas, right? Go around the block one more time, look at which neighborhoods are mostly vulnerable, bring the social vulnerability index and look at that in those neighborhoods, and how we can really bring the cloudburst management into those neighborhoods, looking at nature-based solutions and coupling with our drainage gray solutions in order to slow, delay, and divert the stormwater in those neighborhoods. So this is the next generation of the green infrastructure that we are now marching in full motion. And we are going to talk about this more next week. So, before the city does a larger program, just like the GI or the cloudburst, you all know that we love piloting it first. So that's what we've been doing over the last several years. Before announcing a large cloudburst management portfolio, we said we have to test it in the field. And that's what we've been doing. We have this Clinton houses is one pilot in East Harlem. We are in the advanced stages of the South Jamaica houses. Here you can see the different design of a basketball court. It's a drop basketball court, which is going to enable us to retain more water. And then we have a couple other projects that we are looking in Cyrus Avenue and St. Albans Park, working with the Parks Department. But so this is these four projects are currently in conceptual or design phases for implementation and moving on pretty nicely. And part of that portfolio, we said, we always talk about right of way, which is the sidewalks or the streets, but they are that great opportunity when it comes to the median. And that is we formed this in-house design group because this requires very specific attention. We formed this in-house design group under one of our staff, Teddy's leadership, and his whole portfolio is looking at the medians in the city, identifying how we can really bring some flood mitigation and stormwater management to those neighborhoods. So these are some of the examples that I'm highlighting here, and you can see, the top one is the beach 67th in Rockaways. This is what it looked like before we designed it, and this is what we are converting it to. So it is really uplifting this community, not only reducing the flood risk in that community, but also beautifying that impervious area, as you can see on the top picture here, which is going to become more green and more community friendly. So, this is everything I have spoken so far is all our watershed efforts, right? Like what we are doing in the watershed, how are we retrofitting that impervious land? How are we bringing more stormwater management with this creative thinking? I don't want to pass on because, it's usually not seen as a green infrastructure effort, but indeed we have this coupling we've been doing, watershed management, storage, diversion, coupled with the end of the pipe water quality treatment. And what I mean by that is wetlands. The tidal wetlands is proven for water quality improvements in many, many places in the nation, including Chesapeake Bay. And most recently in our wetland portfolio, this is what it looks like in Alley Creek after we restored those wetlands. Now we are adding this rib mussel portfolio to it. And together, we are calling them our green water quality treatment practices. So these are end of the pipe treatments. It's not disinfection. It is very nature-based. It does provide water quality benefits, mostly on the nutrient and the TSS reduction. Science really backs that up very well. And currently we are testing, do they even provide pathogen reduction benefits? So that is the science that we have. And we are working very closely with CUNY and with other state colleges in the state to prove that there is a science behind these systems could indeed provide that pathogen reduction benefits. Then we can take advantage of this portfolio in our CSO toolbox. So that's where we are. And John is going to be having a workshop next week to bring more on this rib mussel research. But we identified this as an alternative in our Jamaica Bay LTCP, which you all know and familiar with. And we are still proceeding that in the research phase. So I know I'm coming to an end to my presentation, but before finishing it up, I really want to talk about the MS4. You know, we talk about the stormwater management. In my mind, MS4 CSO is not separate. It's one city, one goal, one climate resiliency. But the way we are structured or regulated is under two programs. We have a CSO consent decree, and we have an MS4 permit, which we worked very closely with you all. So currently we are in the implementation stage. The second cycle of the permit is recently issued to the city. I hope you all had the chance to review it. But you know, we are hoping to finalize that permit. I think DEC extended the deadline to March 4th, 2022 to get more public comments. But we are happy that this program has been established very intelligently with all your support, and we are in the full implementation mode. So, you know, I mean, I'm not going to go over all these colorful boxes, but the permit has 12 provisions, and it ranges from, you know, some BMP type of efforts to illicit discharge elimination, to trash and floatable removal, so on and so forth. So in the new permit, you are going to see some of those changes as we have taken into account what we accomplished. And it really sets forth what the city needs to do under this program in the upcoming next 5 years. So we have done an annual meeting, and we highlighted what we accomplished in 2020. Again, all these 14 provisions, we went one by one. So I'm not going to go over it, but you know, the bottom line is the city has done tremendous work in this under this permit for the 14 agencies regulated under the permit. So it is a tremendous effort, and there's a lot of best management practice approaches that we are implementing. They are not, you know, some structural, mostly non-structural, but it's all this collective effort is really to make the city more stormwater management ready for the upcoming decades. So, you know, these are some pictures that our staff took, and it's the summary of what we are doing under each program. I'm not going to go over that, but it is a really well designed program, and it's moving very nicely. So what I really want to talk about is, you know, in the next couple of slides is, you may be asking, okay, great, you know, you are regulated under CSO, you have an MS4 permit, you have a reuse program. How are you really going to bring all of this for us so that we can understand how they are all linked to each other? So in order to accomplish that goal, we kicked this One Water NYC efforts, right? It's One Water, it's not stormwater, it's not CSO, it's not reuse, it is One Water. So under that, we call the phase one, stormwater is our first phase. And that's how we are going to really net everything that we have done in the past under the multitude of programs that you're engaged with under the new roof, and making sure that we, the city, are applying the stormwater management as an integrated approach and more holistically. So the One Water NYC is going to have that goal, right? Climate resilient stormwater planning. But we also want to, you know, make sure that we are adding this new metrics to our goal. like we have to provide equity. Can we still do what we want to do, but make sure that it's equitable and it's affordable in terms of our rates? We want to make sure that our infrastructure keeps being reliable. The workforce development is a big piece of this One NYC phase 1 effort that we want to bring it up and work with you all. How can we make the workforce an integral part of our stormwater management in the upcoming years? And I want to announce, Sheena, you probably haven't heard that, but I got a Christmas gift from our commissioner. Right before Christmas, I was told I'll be leading the GI maintenance group. So that's really going to make us focus on more on this workforce and integration of that maintenance group with our existing design and construction team. So we are very excited with this integration. And then, we are going to be working on the resiliency emergency response and making sure that every effort we do is indeed environmentally sustainable. So I'm going to close off with this one slide. And as you all know that we are having multitudes of stakeholder meetings on this one issue, but this is very important, as the city keeps investing and as the city keeps looking at these new opportunities, new portfolios, bringing everything under one roof, under the one water NYC, we have to really look at our rate structure. I think Shino did it before we kick it off. We have to look at what are some tools in our toolbox that we can look at our rates and make sure that all these listed metrics are met. So to accomplish that goal, we kicked off this new study, Sustainable Rate Structure Study, and we are in the early stages of that study, but we'll be coming back to you, I think it's next week or the following week, with another stakeholder meeting to provide an update and get some feedback. So that completes my presentation. I really would like to thank you all.